So I'm in the garage because I need to do some repair work. I was setting up our Halloween decorations and brought out my strand of lights, and it turns out that the dog got to them and chewed them up. So I can't use this because it's all chewed up. The wires are all exposed. So I went ahead and cut out the damaged part. The rest of the strand I looked over and there's no evidence of any other damage, so I can salvage them. And the reason I love using them is because they're not LEDs, so I can repair them. But because I can use these bulbs, and these are the flicker bulbs, and they give this really cool effect of like, it looks like flames, and it goes perfect with the Halloween theme. So let's go ahead and splice them together. Typically, I would solder things together with your traditional soldering kit, but this time I wanted to give the solder seal wire connectors. So these are rad because it's the shrink wrap, the blue stripes, those bands are actually adhesive, and in the center you can see the solder. So it's an all-in-one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my wire cutters, and I love these because you can select how much you want to take off, depending on if it's like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go ahead and make my adjustment, and all you got to really do is you take your wire, put it at the stop, close it, and it's stripped, and then all of them will be that same length. So you're both receiving ends. On this one, what I could have done is remove the housing, just pop it off, recrimp the wires to the connectors, and put the housing back on. But I really wanted to try these connectors on this because since it's got the seal, the adhesive in it, it can keep the moisture out. So I didn't want to do that, so I'm just going to pop the housing back on and strip the ends of the wire. Just like I did before, just like that. Got to make sure you get all the stuff out of there before you go again, or else it's not going to work. So I also have these little hands. So these are cool. It's all magnetic, so they connect on there, and I can actually just put my wires and I'll hold them. Extra hands are awesome. Before I do all that, although this is shrink wrap and it's the connector and everything's there, I do want to use shrink wrap to cover it all up. That way it is not as exposed, although it should be sufficient, but I do like using some more the heat shrink wrap over it, just because it'll keep the wires together and keep them from separating even more. So now that I've connected that, you always want to know what your connections are going to be. I do need to say, don't try this at home. I am not a certified electrician in any way, shape, or form. I'm just your average DIYer. So don't hold me responsible for something you messed up. So what I do is I take my connections and I usually just slide them into each other like that. So they make an embrace. And then just kind of give them a little twist. And they should hold each other, and then just slide this right over it. The solder will be right there. So I'm going to do one at a time. Since, there we go, I already got my other little hand in there, and slide this guy in. Just a little together so they can stay together. Slide this in here. I'll move my little hand there. So now they're in place. Grab my heat gun. And what you want to do with the heat gun is you want to move it around because you want it to melt evenly on all ends. And you can see it already melting. The plastic and the adhesive will melt first because the melting point is lower than the actual solder. You gotta let it cool because it's very, very hot. Okay, now that that is melted in place, I'm gonna go ahead and do the same on the other side, or the other two wires. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide this into place. Slide it in here, take my wires, and then I will slide them into each other. Sometimes giving them a little twist kind of helps them hold in place. I will use my little extra hand there, slide this into place, use my extra little hand here. So my wires are in there, this is in place. I can use this one to kind of, there we go. And same thing, I will take my heat gun and apply heat. And once it's cooled off, I can go ahead and remove it. And you can see how the solder has melted, and so has the plastic. Okay, now that everything has cooled off, I have mended it, and then I did cover it with more shrink wrap, so it's not going to continue to open up. So I didn't want this to continue pulling through, so that's why I wrapped it with the shrink wrap. I am placing the bulbs. So remember, these are supposed to look like flames, but they're not flames, they're just meant to look like that. Go ahead and connect them, and here we go. It worked.